Let us pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings. As your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic, we seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Yeah, we'll report the petition I have next week. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Leader of majority.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Thursday, 18 February 2021. The report of the Senate Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investment on the inquiry into the financial operations of number 1, Bomet, number 2, Homa Bay, number 3, Isiolo, number 4, Kakamega, number 5, Kiambu, number 6, Kisumu, number 7, Laikipia, number 8, Mandera, number 9, Migori, number 10, Mombasa, number 11, Murang'a, number 12, Nandi, 13, Nyeri, 14, Samburu, 15, Siaya, 16, Tana River, 17, Tharaka Nithi, 18, Trans Nzoia, 19, Turkana, and finally 20, Wajir. County Executive for financial year 2014 stroke 2015, 1st July 2014 to 30th June 2015. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order. Is another, okay. Senator Morgan.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Thursday, 18th February 2021. The report of the Mediation Committee on the consideration of the Early Childhood Education Bill, Senate Bills number 26 of 2018. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Why is there a cloud? Okay, next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Senator Mogeni.
Notice of motion. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to give notice of the following motion: that this House adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the consideration of the Early Childhood Education Bill, Senate Bills number 26 of 2018. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Senator Petronila Were. Not there. Okay. If she comes back, we'll go. Senator Michael Mbito. He has 2 statements. Senator Mtula Kilonzo Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 48.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation on the refusal by Kenya government to approve the application by the Emirates Airlines to increase the passenger flights on the Dubai-Nairobi route despite a bilateral agreement between the governments of the 2 countries that supports the application. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, the committee should answer to the following queries. Number 1, explain the reasons for the 2 rejections of Emirates' application to reintroduce the 3rd daily flight through a letter dated 3rd of March 2019, and also to increase passenger flights from 7 to 9 per week through a letter dated 6th of January 2021. Number 2, the committee should also tell us why the Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development, Public Works breached the Memorandum of Understanding for Air Services between the United Arab Emirates and Kenya, which had been implemented in good faith for 15 years, giving unrestricted entry to Emirates Airlines. Number 3, explain the reasons why the Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works has not utilized the clause on consultations under the said agreement. And 4, Mr. Speaker, confirm whether the ministry is aware that the United Arab Emirates government has constructed a stall for the Kenya government at the Dubai Expo beginning October 2021, and this dispute might ruin very many available business opportunities, increasing the imbalance of trade. 5, confirm whether the ministry is aware that the United Arab Emirates government had committed to build a modern COVID-19 laboratory at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, and this dispute might ruin that opportunity. And last, confirm whether the Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works is aware that Kenyans have been barred from the United States, and the negotiations and other issues concerning this matter might stall due to this dispute. Mr. Speaker, with your leave, allow me to table on the table of
Senator, is it United States or United Emirates?
And United Emirates. I read it wrong.
Yeah.
United Arab Emirates. Sorry,
Yeah, not United States. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, with your leave, allow me to table the Memorandum of Understanding dated 16th of September 2002 between the United Arab Emirates and the Republic of Kenya, The letter dated 3rd of March 2019 from the Emirates to Honorable James Macharia, EGH. The third letter, the letter addressed from the Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works dated 14th of March 2019 to the Regional Manager, East Africa, Emirates Airline. Number 4, the letter to Mr. James Macharia from the United Arab Emirates. Mr. Speaker, I have quoted the date. And the second last, the request by Emirates dated 6th of January 2021. And the refusal, Mr. Speaker, dated 29th of January 2021. Thank you, Speaker.
Senator Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my brother, my colleague, my neighbor, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., for bringing that matter, Mr. Speaker, to the attention of the Senate. Mr. Speaker, there is a matter that goes just beyond the Emirates. It will be remembered that, Mr. Speaker, discussions have been held here and elsewhere on attempts by the national government to protect Kenya Airways. And one of the things that the decision makers are trying to do is to try to create a monopoly for Kenya Airways in a trade that is international in nature, a trade where, Mr. Speaker, you can never succeed in creating a monopoly. The only thing that you can do is to up the game for Kenya Airways. Mr. Speaker, every time we curtail airlines from increasing their flights into our country, what we are doing is that we are shooting ourselves in the foot, Mr. Speaker. How do we even begin to bring a balance in the trade between Kenya and the UAE if we are not allowing additional flights to come into the country? I had a discussion, Mr. Speaker, last week with the Deputy Speaker, who had visited Dubai, I think alongside Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., and the discussion revolved around the opportunities that are available for us to even bridge the gap in the imbalance of trade between Kenya and Dubai. And one of those things that we need to do is to open our space, and especially our airports, so that we have more Emirates aircrafts bringing in cargo and bringing in passengers. The Speaker, I sit in the Transport Committee, and I can see my chair here, and I'm very sure that when the statement comes to us, we have to deal with it. And I see Council Senator Linturi of Meru also sits in the same committee. It's a matter that we have to really deal with and make sure that the right thing and only the right thing is done, not trying to overprotect Kenya Airways, but look for ways of giving it more wings to fly more people and more cargo out of this country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mohamud.
Mr. Speaker, in contributing to this statement, I am aware that bilateral air service agreements are actually between countries at the bilateral level. And in fact, quite a number of them are negotiated and agreed between the two countries. And these agreements normally, in most cases, are also on reciprocal basis. That frequencies of flights to and out of countries are governed by those countries. What I'm not aware is whether there is an agreement, as you know, which actually has been negotiated in that context, such that, Kenya Airways has the right to fly into the Emirates, and so the Emirates, in the Emirates or Al Ittihad, also the frequencies to flight into the country. I think we must also be very careful because our country, as a sovereign state, I think negotiations are done at the country levels.
What's your point? There's a point of information. Do you want to be informed by Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.?
On the question of frequency of flights, there's unrestricted entry of Emirates to Kenya in the agreement. But more importantly, Kenya Airways is operating 12 flights to Dubai. Thank you.
I was just, Mr. Speaker, mentioning the way bilateral agreements are structured. If this is a unique one of unrestricted, why unrestricted also is a question we need to ask anyway. But I think let the question come. And I think first and foremost, we are guided by the decision taken by our government. And as a former diplomat, I think sometimes we must be careful not to be seen for acting for other nations and other national interests. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Moses Wetangula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I join Mutula Kilonzo Jr., distinguished senator from Makueni, on this statement. Mr. Speaker, the Emirates have arguably become the busiest transit center in the world. No longer do people routinely fly to Europe to go to America or other places. They go to Dubai and fly to all other parts of the world. And Mr. Speaker, when we breach an agreement that we have signed, giving unlimited access to our airspace and our international airport, when we are not getting similar restrictions, is not a reasonable act. Remember, Mr. Speaker, as the committee looks at this, Senator Wamatanga and his group must remember that we have over 60,000 Kenyans working and living in the Emirates who require frequent flights back home for this or that reason. That must be looked at. Number two, Mr. Speaker, Kenya Airways has no restrictions in flying to the Emirates. Its only restrictions is its sheer incompetence and inability to offer services commensurate and in comparison with other airlines. If Kenya Airways was competitive, nobody would be bothering to worry about Emirates, Etihad, Qatar, or other airlines. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, Kenya cannot live in isolation. We are part of the global village, and our connection through Dubai particularly, and Abu Dhabi with the two airlines has given us comparative advantage in traveling to many parts of the world. And any restriction being imposed by any unreasonable act by a government official or a group of government officials must be condemned by this committee and must be meant to be lifted as soon as is practically possible for us to continue enjoying economics of scale between our two countries. Thank you.
Senator Cheriot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I join the rest of my colleagues in most of the issues that they raise, but I hold a slightly different tone and view in terms of what the committee should endeavor to find out in addition to what Senator Mutula Kilonzo and the rest of our colleagues have requested about. Issues of trade and trade barriers are not that simple, Mr. Speaker, to the point where, as a House, the Parliament of Kenya can unilaterally condemn the actions of Kenyan government officials in what I would consider to be enhancement of protectionist policies that will defend our space as a people and try and secure better businesses for local homegrown businesses and our people. I agree with them, Mr. Speaker, that indeed, if we have an existing agreement between us and the United Arab Emirates, and there are certain breaches to it, then it is incumbent upon government to ensure that, first of all, we respectfully honor and keep our negotiations as they had been agreed at that particular time. But one of the things additionally that the committee should do, Mr. Speaker, is to try and address
the issue of trade imbalance between Kenya and the United Arab Emirates. Mr. Speaker, the same way we are using so much vigor and energy defending the Emirates airline because of their competence and the work that they do, we need also to put up a voice and ask those ministry officials when they come here, what is it that the United Arab Emirates can do in terms of availing trade and business opportunities for many of our citizens? Mr. Speaker, it is not a secret that today, if you try to export anything to that particular country, the standards and the demands upon which they place on many of our goods that come from this country are almost impossible and restrictive in nature. Therefore, this presents us an opportunity, Mr. Speaker.
What's your point of information, Senator Wetangula?
Information or order?
Information.
Okay, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I want to inform my distinguished colleague from Kericho, notwithstanding his eloquence, he's short on facts. Because, Mr. Speaker, the Emirates have opened to Kenya an transit market for our flowers, the same way as Amsterdam. All you need is to take our flowers to Emirates and trans-export to any other part of the world. So in fact, it's our incompetence that is tilting the trade balance against us. It is not their incompetence. So the senator for Kericho is actually arguing per incurium.
There's further information so that you can...
The senator of Kericho is not aware that, in fact, the Kenya government and the UAE government signed agreement on standards. That is the reason you will find a Makueni mango in a market in Dubai, and avocados and flowers. And that is the same reason, that you will find their airline landing in Eldoret, was in Gishu County, to transport goods from Dubai and leaves empty, because they have already exchanged a bilateral agreement on standards. So do not quote standards, quote incompetence.
Mr. Speaker, I hold a completely different view. And these are not my words. At our last committee visit, Mr. Speaker, I can't remember which committee it was, but as a committee, we visited the Kenyan consulate in the United Arab Emirates. And these are the concerns that the Kenyan officials were raising with us as leaders of this country. And they were wondering, what is it that you as a people, and you as a people in leadership, are doing about the imbalance of trade between us and them? Those things that you have said are true. But I have told you, the standards that they have set for our goods, those mangoes that you're quoting, Senator Mutula, if one of them is found to have even a simple natural defect, the whole fleet is sent back. Go to Jomo Kenyatta and ask the people that do importation of goods to United Arab Emirates. Have an experience with them. That's why, Mr. Speaker, I said it will be important when these officials come, that Senator Moses Wetangula, Senator Mutula Kilonzo, we come and listen to what our Kenyan officials tells us as the challenges they continue to face. But that is not to say that we should renege on the agreements that we had. Therefore, I do challenge them that on that particular day when they come to give a response, let the two of them be in this house so that we listen to the facts as they are presented before us. Because, Mr. Speaker, I agree with them that indeed Kenya deserves better from what we receive from our trade partners. And this is not the only country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mwenye Haji.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kujiunga na maseneta wenzangu kuunga mkono taarifa iliyoombwa na Senator Makueni. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kweli kwamba serikali inajaribu kulinda shirika la ndege la Kenya Airways, kwa sababu hata Mombasa wamezuia mashirika mengine ya kuweza kusafirisha abiria kutoka nje mpaka Mombasa moja kwa moja kwa sababu ya kuilinda Kenya Airways. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni wakati umefika sasa kuona kwamba Kenya pia wanapata ile tunaita Kiingereza value for money. Hatuwezi kuwa tunaendelea kuisubsidize ama kuitilia nguvu Kenya Airways wakati wao wenyewe wana uzembe na utepetevu katika kuendesha kazi zao. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tunaomba kwamba kamati husika iingilie swala hili kwa undani zaidi, kuhakikisha kwamba kama kuna jambo lolote ambalo linaweza kufanyika kuongeza idadi ya ndege zinazokuja kutoka Dubai ama United Arab Emirates iweze kufatikana, kwa sababu hii itasaidia Wakenya wengi ambao wanasafiri kibiashara na vile vile kikazi katika nchi hizi za Uarabuni. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Kamar Margaret. You look surprised.
I'm not surprised, Mr. Speaker. I was busy reading something. Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity to add to this statement, and I want to support the statement that has been brought in by Senator Mutula Jr. Mr. Speaker, in Uasin Gishu, we are honored to receive goods that come to Nairobi. In fact, it's a clearing place for goods that go to Isli. But it is true, as Senator Mutula said, that the cargo Emirates flights leaves Eldoret empty. We are now aware that it doesn't go back to Emirates directly anymore. It comes to Nairobi to pick flowers and go to Amsterdam. Mr. Speaker, 30% of the flowers are nearer Eldoret than Nairobi. So that when we talk of efficiencies, our different ministries that are concerned should actually look at the efficiencies that we have on the ground. Because if 30% of the flowers are from Eldama Ravine and Uasin Gishu, and the same flowers come to Nairobi only for the Emirates flights to leave Eldoret, come to Nairobi, pick the same flowers, and go to Amsterdam, it makes no sense at all. Mr. Speaker, I support that there are few things that we must deal with, and as the committee looks at this, let them look at it beyond transport, let them address the issue of trade. Because sometimes we talk of trade imbalance, and actually we have no goods to give to anybody. In Uasin Gishu, we should have been exporters of both flowers and maybe even grains. We know, we are aware that the United Arab Emirates is a net importer of food. There are many grains, including beans and pulses, that we should be able to export. When you talk of beans and the export of even fruits like avocados, the processing has been standardized. Anything that goes to the EU is processed by KFIs the same way they would process goods that go to the UAE. I think our biggest problem is the fact that we have not gone forward to do what we must do, because there must be somebody who is exporting these avocados and mangoes that are in the shelves in Dubai. If there is somebody who is doing it, then it means it is possible to do it. I think it is very important that as the committee is looking at the barriers that have been put to the flights, that they look at the barriers that seem to exist that affect the export of the goods. As I know we have been thinking about this in Eldoret for a while, and we now have things that should have been done by either the county government or the national government. Having storage that is of the right standards, having cooling structures for fresh produce, we don't have those. So we cannot blame anybody when we can't send anything from Uasin Gishu. But I can say that the challenge is there, and we are going to actually work at this one. Because the minute we discovered that the Emirates actually is coming to Nairobi to pick our flowers and take to Amsterdam, we realized that we should have been releasing our flowers in Eldoret itself. And this is what we are working on with our county government, and we hope very soon it will be done. So I support, and in addition to the issues that have been raised, I think the trade angle should be looked at. So the committee should actually invite not only the government officials in charge of transport and infrastructure, but also bring in the issue of trade so that we deal with it once and for all. You will be able to rescue our airport in Uasin Gishu. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the chance.
Senator Ali Abdullahi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What I wanted to say, the Deputy Speaker has already said, because as the Committee for Trade, we will want to know what's really happening. And by the way, we should not always support others, but we should also support our people. And where we are wrong, we tell them we are wrong. Some of these people will want to take advantage of our poor situation sometimes. Even if Emirates is doing very well, we will also try and encourage Kenya Airways to do better so that we are able to take our things to the UAE, to Europe and everywhere else. We are not here to fight for other countries' airlines. Our job here is to support Kenya and make sure that Kenyans benefit from all business enterprises and all those companies that are coming to Kenya as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kimani Wamatangi. The whip here.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll make a quick contribution, Mr. Speaker. First, as an interested party, because Senator Mutula Kilonzo is a good friend of mine, and I think he's raised very important issues that need to be discussed. But also, Mr. Speaker, I'm the chairperson of the Committee on Transport. And I want first to laud Senator Mutula Kilonzo, because I think it's important to raise some of these issues so that they can also bring out the debate. And we should not be overly concerned with the divergence of views. I mean, whether we feel we want to protect our airline or not. But the debate itself and the issues that come out is important. And that's why I think, Senator Mutula, you've done well. We must say a few things on this matter. One, I think we must make agreements that we are ready to keep as a country. If we sit down and we have a team that will negotiate either with an airline, either with an international group, with another government, let us have a team that is ready to look at the document and only pen your signature to the agreement you are ready to keep. If you find that it is either oppressive or the areas you cannot want to keep, that you don't want to keep, then don't sign it. Annex them out. And then that way we don't have this kind of thing. And Mr. Speaker, I was saying that we also must acknowledge, and I remember one time I wanted to fly to Turkey, and I wanted to apply a visa. So I was informed then that if I wanted to apply a visa, I could only apply it for then through the Turkish airline. And what that means then is if you apply it through Turkish airline, you must also fly Turkish airline to Turkey then. Now, so the question of countries protecting their own is not new. Some do. And with a good reason, like that incident I've also experienced, Mr. Speaker. I think what we need to bring out is what are the causes of some of these things happening. And one I would want to raise, Mr. Speaker, is I think Kenya Airways has a lot of work to do. And this one we have to agree. That besides what we are talking about now and protecting them, Mr. Speaker, remember, we have had to have this debate here on the floor as to why is government going out of its way to give Kenya Airways 25 billion, because they're going under and because they're not managing their things right. And so we have to say to Kenya Airways, although we love you, although we want you to carry our flag high in every nation where we go, when we see those red and green colors in capitals around the world, we are proud. But you also have to do what every other competitor is doing. You have to raise your game, raise your standard. Mr. Speaker, if you remember one day we had an engagement with you when I had called you with a concern. I have personally flown Kenya Airways, gone to London with a ticket that has been issued by this house itself through the procurement department. And when I'm in London, on my day to fly back, a KQ ticket, my ticket reads that I'm flying on that day at 4:30 p.m. When I give the ticket to the person waiting, they look at it and tell me, no, your flight is tomorrow afternoon. And I am telling, can't you read what this ticket says? They say, no. It shows here on the system that you have to fly tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, you know what I did? I went to my pocket, pulled my card, and bought a ticket back with my own money. That is not interesting. I remember waiting one day in Paris for 18 hours. And so you're asking yourself, if these are the kind of services then we are offering, how would we be expecting to be competitive? And so Senator Wetangula should have spoken even more because when he was here, because he has been a victim as a popular senator who is known all over the country. There was a time he was made to disembark from a plane, from Kenya Airways, that because he's not carrying a national ID, and they left him behind and embarrassed him. Yeah, I mean, a former minister of this government, you know, and so what we are saying.
There's a point of information.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my distinguished colleague from Kiambu for raising this. In fact, they embarrassed the senator for Bungoma for not carrying an ID, and yet I was carrying the Kenya Airways platinum card. Platinum card of Kenya Airways, which I showed them. And they still said, this is not good enough to identify you. The Speaker of the National Assembly came forward and said, this is somebody I know, he was my classmate. They said that's not sufficient identity. The Speaker of the Senate, Ekwe Thuro, came and said, this is one of our senators. He didn't have to say that. I have been your foreign minister for 10 years. 5 as assistant, 5 as substantive. Kenya was still argued that they didn't know who I was.
Mr. Speaker, I was not intending to lambast Kenya Airways, but what I'm saying is this, that there are things that they must be told to their face that they have to do. I mean, you cannot protect bad manners. You cannot protect incompetence. And so we have to own Kenya Airways as a country and say that this is our national pride. We will do everything that we should to ensure that they continue to operate. But they have to know that they're in a competitive market. They have to fight for profitability. They have to give excellent services like every other airline is giving, Mr. Speaker. And they also have to up their game in PR. It is not going to be business as usual. And we may protect them here, Mr. Speaker, with the statements we make or any law we may pass, but we cannot protect them from the competitors.
Let's consult in law terms.
Who will protect them in Paris? Who will protect them in Brazil? And so this is a very competitive industry. They have to know that. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that as the chairperson of this committee, we shall look at this statement with its merit, ensure that we invite them, and we'll invite the Cabinet Secretary.
Senator? We need to
have the discussion, Mr. Speaker, robustly.
There's a point of order.
I'm surprised whether we're in Dubai Parliament or we're in Kenyan Parliament, Mr. Speaker, sir. Even the chief whip is doing the worst things which should not have been done. Bashing Kenya Airways and Kenya government.
No. You're out of order, Senator. Senator Mutula, what's your point of order?
Speaker, you know, we are bound by our proceedings. This good gentleman from Wajir should know, Senator Ali, that this Senate investigated the conduct and workmanship of Kenya Airways. And we have a report here. So there's nothing out of order in saying, and particularly following the submissions by Senator Wamatangi, that taxpayers are coughing 25 billion shillings. In fact, he should bash them more. Because we are giving them public funds. We should not, in fact, in any respect, treat them with kid gloves. That's why they are misbehaving. Thank you.
Let Senator Wamatangi conclude.
Mr. Speaker, let me conclude, but allow me to inform Senator Dr. Ali that, Mr. Speaker, it will be sad if what I'm saying is misconstrued, but that is the truth and reality of the marketplace. You have to compete for space. You compete by making sure that you're giving excellent services. And if we kid glove them or babysit them, they can't. They will not get it. We will be coughing another 25 billion every year. And I said, we love Kenya Airways. It is our airline. It is our national pride. But our national pride must do better than it is doing, Mr. Speaker, in terms of ensuring that they give the right services, Mr. Speaker. So finally, I wanted to say, Mr. Speaker, as the chairperson of the committee, I will ensure that we hear them, that we listen to them, that there will be fair hearing, but where they are wrong, we'll tell them they are wrong. Where we should act ourselves and ensure that our territorial integrity, that their place is protected, we shall act as we should, Mr. Speaker. It is my view that the statement is not misplaced. It raises pertinent issues, and I think that the way to go is to ensure that there's balance between the two, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, I think the committee that is going to look at this matter, it was canvassed actually in my presence when we had a delegation 2 weeks ago, and therefore we need a report so that as quickly as possible so that we are able to make progress. Next question, Senator Mwaura. Senator Cleophas Malala.
Can I remove this? Suffocating. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 48-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Tourism, Trade and Industrialization concerning the multiple tax payment by lorries and trucks transporting building materials across counties in Kenya. In the statement, the committee should state whether the committee is aware that the transporters of building material under Swaminarayan Savings and Credit Cooperative Society Limited are being subjected to payment of taxes in all the counties they traverse while transporting building material. 2, indicate whether the members of the said SACCO were involved by way of public participation in coming up with the taxes leveled on them by the various county governments. 3, clarify to the Senate whether the said taxes are legally established in the counties and the monies allocated channeled to the county revenue collection account. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, consider the suspension of these taxes until proper investigations are done about them and a harmonized taxation system on the acquisition and transportation of building materials across counties is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Musurve.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to support this statement by Senator Malala. Senator Malala has come up with a statement that is very important, Honorable Speaker, especially this time when we are talking about the 4 big agenda of building, housing, manufacturing, and all that. We should encourage transportation of materials from one county to another so that we allow development of houses, development of buildings across all counties, Honorable Speaker. And even when it comes to taxing, there should be a standard way of taxing so that there is no triple or double, taxation of materials. There should be a standard way so that if it's taxing, materials just tax once. Honorable Speaker, I hope that when this statement comes, probably to the Committee of Tourism where I sit, we look at it with an open eye and see how we can help Kenyans in the manufacturing and building industry, Honorable Speaker. I support this statement. Thank you.
Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
I want to thank Senator Malala for raising that issue. But I thought, Speaker, that I should bring to the attention of the Senate that the Finance Committee had a retreat, and I'm glad my chair is here, the landlord and senator for Kirinyaga, that we had a session with Treasury on on-sales revenue on this aspect alone. And in fact, there's a policy that has been tabled by the executive on the idea of not taxing goods across the highways from county to county. I was hoping that, Mr. Speaker, that statement would be redirected to the committee led by Senator Kibiru, because this information is available with us. And what the counties are doing is against the policy that is already an executive policy, only that the law is stuck in the National Assembly. So, Speaker, my contribution to this is, could you please redirect the statement to Senator Kibiru's committee? Thank you.
I actually thought so because I think there was a very detailed discussion on this and some conclusions made. So I direct the statement to the Committee on Finance and Trade. Please expedite. Yeah, finance and budgeting. Please move with speed because the traders are really complaining. There's an outcry there. They are not making any business, and these are people who are in business. So, as a house, given that they have brought the matter here again, it shows it shows how they respect this house and the confidence they have in the house. So, Senator Kibiru, move with speed to give us a report. Senator Mwaura is not yet here. Next, Senator Majority Leader.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant to Standing Order 52.1, I hereby present to the Senate the business of the House for the week commencing Tuesday, 23rd February 2021. On Tuesday, 23rd February 2021, the Senate Business Committee, SBC, will meet to schedule the business of the Senate. On that day, 23rd February 2021, the Senate will consider bills scheduled for second reading and those at the Committee of the Whole, for which, following the judgment of the High Court in the Constitutional Petition number 284 of 2019, the resolution process contemplated under Article 110(3) of the Constitution was completed by both Speakers of Parliament. The Senate will also continue with the considerations of the business that will not be concluded in today's order paper, including motions, petitions, and statements. On Wednesday, 24th February 2021, the Senate will continue with business that will not be concluded on Tuesday, 23rd February 2021, and any other business scheduled for the Senate Business Committee, while on Thursday, 25th February 2021, the Senate will continue with business that will not be concluded on Wednesday, 24th February 2021, and any other business. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform senators that the office of the Speaker and that of the Senate leadership has continued to engage our counterparts in the National Assembly to fast-track the process of regularizing the bills affected by judgment of the Court of Appeal, the Court on Bills, the High Court on bills passed and procedurally to conform with Article 110(3) of the Constitution. Once this process is concluded, the Senate Business Committee will provide a framework for fast-tracking consideration and passage of the said bills upon introduction in the Senate. As I reported in the previous week, Mr. Speaker, a total of 10 bills are in the process of republication, 19 bills have already been republished, and 15 bills are undergoing concurrence process. This status has remained the same. One bill, namely the Mung Beans Bill, Senate Bills number 9 of 2020, was concluded at the second reading stage and committed to the Committee of the Whole House, while the Cooperative Societies Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 11 of 2020, is awaiting division at the second reading as indicated in today's order paper. I take this opportunity to urge the respective movers of the bills, standing committees, and respective senators that have filed amendments to the bills mentioned above to be in the House whenever these bills are scheduled to facilitate speedy consideration and smooth transition to the next stage. Mr. Speaker, crucial business relating to financial matters is before the Senate, namely the Budget Policy Statement. Budget Policy Statement 2021 was tabled in the House on Tuesday, 16th February 2021. The Senate is required to consider and adopt the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on policy within 14 days after the policy statement is tabled. To this end, I urge the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget to expedite consideration of the policy statement for consideration by the Senate as required by the law and the standing orders. Mr. Speaker, sir, in conclusion, I urge all standing committees to expedite consideration of petitions and statements pending before them and table reports accordingly. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you and hereby lay the statement on the table of the House. Thank you.
Yes, Senator Mwenye Haji.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I rise on a point of order to inquire about the report of the extrajudicial killings that was being conducted by the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee under the chairmanship of the then chairman, Senator Gerard Gay of Nandi County. Mr. Speaker, sir, we had done a lot of hearings in regard to these extrajudicial killings. We visited Mombasa, we visited Nairobi, where there was a killing of a young boy, and the committee was supposed to write a report and table before the House. That report, Mr. Speaker, sir, has not been written or tabled before the House. And what is happening now is that killings are still going on. Last Thursday, Mr. Speaker, sir, in Mombasa, they shot a young man of 24 years in broad daylight. And 2 others were injured in the shooting. The first to be shot succumbed to his injuries and was buried on the same day in Mombasa. Mr. Speaker, this is a recurring theme that needs to be addressed as soon as possible, because we are losing young men in unknown circumstances. And the police or the state has not made any effort, Mr. Speaker, sir, to curb these extrajudicial killings. I therefore urge Your Honor that maybe this committee be asked to table the report so that we can debate and see what measures can be done, can be recommended for these extrajudicial killings to end. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I don't see the chair of the committee. Any member from the committee? Justice and Legal, yeah. Yeah. Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
I'm the only one. Yes, I'm the only one, yes. Did you require a response from Ms.
Yes.
Speaker?
I hope you heard what Senator Faki said.
Is it the extrajudicial killing?
Yeah, yes.
I believe, Speaker, we had a pending report on the extrajudicial killings. And by the way, Senator Faki, for the longest time, has been our member. So perhaps, Speaker, if you give me until Tuesday.
Okay, give us an update on Tuesday.
We had table 1 report, but allow me to confirm, and Tuesday we'll have more information. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next order.
Order number 8, the Cooperative Societies Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 11 of 2020, second reading, division.
I don't think we have numbers, so it's deferred to next week, next Wednesday. Next order.
Order number 9, Committee of the Whole.
Senator Wambua is away. He had to step out, so it's also deferred to next week. Next order.
Order number 10, motion, allocation by counties of at least 10% of their budget on early childhood development education.
this weekend on KBC Channel 1.
Teacher Nini, if you like, take me to High Court, sue me, or take me to Court of Appeal.
Well, until everything comes back to normal, we just have to make do.
Teacher, that is unacceptable. This is not what we signed up for. This environment is worse than approved school.
You mean you still bruised over that mad incident? Grow up.
What, did you have a mad fight?
I wish I could do that.
If you ask any man if he has gossiped before, he will answer with a loud vehement no.
Yes.
But of course we know that is not true. Men gossip.
Classmates, every Saturday on KBC. Next on.
I'm
really sorry too. I will find the person behind this.
Just
They won't believe you anyway. Please, just leave. Leave as well.
Fellow tribeswomen.
So it's a mutiny against me. It's a mutiny against me, Mr. Speaker, because this is from my own tribe. Okay, so with a light touch. Okay, so Mr. Speaker, this particular research, we show that children taken to high quality daycare centers actually had higher command of communication, of even mathematical skills in the future. It was proved that high-quality daycare centers lays firm foundation for future learning and even better achievement. Mr. Speaker, sir, daycare centers actually prepare kids for smooth transition to other education levels even in the future, just apart from actually assisting kids to adjust to school life later on in life. Mr. Speaker, sir, daycare centers also goes a long way to actually assist kids to socialize better in life, to become better communicators. It is here where they learn vocalization, and even they are actually better adapted to a wider society come the future. I think through this, we can be able to train kids in early life, Mr. Speaker, and even avoid the issues of tribalism because they actually learn to interact with others. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is in these centers also where kids learn to develop life skills such as problem-solving skills. We have communication skills. We have sharing skills. And it is here where new personalities emerge, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, kids in these particular centers would go a long way to actually interact with mentors who are adults, and in this case, who are not their own parents. And furthermore, kids here actually become resistant to diseases that normally affect young kids when they go to school, like ringworms. We have respiratory diseases such as colds. We even have very many other diseases that might affect kids. And in most cases, those kids start joining daycare centers, normally develop resistance, and once they join the mainstream school, they'll be very strong, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, kids also, when they attend, or in this case, if we have daycare centers, it is here where kids will be able to actually even access healthier foods. We have been speaking to issues of school feeding programs, Mr. Speaker. We were looking at ECD centers, and my committee in a short while will propose right across the counties some fair, or in this case, some standardized form of feeding programs right across the ECD centers. We are also proposing, and even in our budget proposals today, both in Labor Committee and my committee, we are proposing that in primary schools, Madam Speaker, we propose that there should be some feeding programs, because based on the fact that there are kids that come from families that are not well endowed, what happens is that school can be an avenue where they can get some good food, and in this case, this goes a long way to actually help them develop. Madam Speaker, recent mapping in terms of daycare centers established that there are about 2,700 informal daycare centers in Nairobi alone, in informal settlement, that is Kipra, Kawangware, and other slums. And in this case, in these areas, most of the kids that go to these daycare centers in these slum areas are actually kids majorly from single parents that are working, Madam Speaker, particularly because of the fact that they cannot afford house helps. And more specifically, in the recent past, there was labor laws, in this case, has got stringent measures that is against those people who play around, or in this case, who do not treat house helps properly. Therefore, these single parents would actually look for an alternative to ensure that they can leave their kids at least so that they can be able to do some jobs to earn a living, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, these are ad hoc and very temporary centers with no structured arrangements, not registered. The conditions are very poor, and even in most cases, they are run by untrained men and women, and you can visualize what is happening in these centers. Madam Speaker, these daycare centers, which have got no structured systems, there are no age-appropriate activities for the particular kids that are taken to that, so any kids of any age are just exposed to whatever activities found there. In addition to this, Madam Speaker, these centers are not also registered, and because they are not registered, we normally even find that the kids are not registered, and these kids can, in this case, be exposed to the masses of even child trafficking, Madam Speaker, and therefore, this is indeed a challenge. That is why we are proposing that there should be a policy to actually regulate these centers. There should be a policy to ensure that these ones here are managed properly, and therefore they are followed up. In addition to this, even away from daycare centers being set up in very poor conditions, of late, this one here has become an entrepreneurial an enterprise, Madam Speaker, where traders, in this case, set up daycare centers. They can charge any amount of fees, as much as even 30,000 or even 50 per term, to take care of kids. And even apart from that one, the sanitation in those particular daycare centers are really wanting. And this, in this case, Madam Speaker, is exposing kids to challenges of diseases, and even particularly right now with COVID-19, it is actually a great challenge unless we have guidelines that shall enforce some rules, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, you'll find that these particular centers are very congested. Some of them even are just put up maybe in some kitchens or anything that, that can be found, and in most cases, you find that these are conditions that are actually very not fit for little kids of this particular age, because this is a very fragile age, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this actually is the reason why I was prompted to propose that actually the Department of Basic Education should actually prepare, or in this case, put in place a policy to regulate these particular centers, to ensure that centers that are put up right across the counties, in this case, will have a policy that guides them so that they are standardized. And even in addition to that one, if there is a policy, we have the county government setting aside 10% of their budgets to ensure that they put up these centers. Because daycare centers, Madam Speaker, which are already, I said, the new curriculum left out, is actually laying a foundation for education in the future. And without which, Madam Speaker, this is actually going to affect the kids, and most of them may not actually get, or rather have a firm grip come the future as they join the mainstream school, because as you know, Madam Speaker, Article 53 stipulates that education is a basic right to every kid, and therefore I call upon the Senate to actually pass this motion so that we have this. Therefore, I beg to move and ask Senator Dr. Gertrude Musuruve to second. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Musuruve.
Honorable Chair, Honorable Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to second this motion. And before I second the motion, I want to truly congratulate Senator Dr. Milgo for coming up with this motion that is very important. Senator Dr. Milgo is Chair Education, and we have met quite a number of governors on the issue of early childhood in the 47 counties. And I want to say on the floor of this House that we cannot ignore ECD, because ECD is not a cost, ECD is not a burden, but it is an investment in this country, Honorable Chair. Now, it is important to know that early childhood is more of a preparatory stage for children to begin socializing with others, for children to get outside of their homes. Once children are born in a family, the first interactions they meet are usually with the outside world, are usually in the Sunday school and then in the schools. So it is important that even when they get out of the family background, they should go to a family background in the school that is friendly, that will receive them, for future years, and preparing them, to socialize with others. Early childhood actually brings up a holistic individual. As holistic in terms of emotional development for children, psychological development, physical development, cognitive development. So it is actually important and in order that ECD gives a firm and good foundation for children so that they are well grounded. ECD lays the foundation for children to join others. ECD helps, gives children the foundation to begin learning, Honorable Speaker. And this foundation needs to be solid. This foundation needs to be strong enough. Honorable Speaker, a psychologist will tell that the first 5 years of a child is very important, because during these 5 years, that is when children learn a language, that is when children learn to even relate with others, that is when children learn to share. Innately, children are egocentric. When they are born, they do not know how to share. When they are born, they do not know how to interact. When they go to early childhood, that is when they now begin to share with others. They are taught to share with others. And it is important that the lessons that they learn there are, well-grounded. So that when they are well-grounded, intellectually, they will be fine. Psychologically, they'll be fine. And actually, there are 4 clear goals of early childhood. That when children go to early childhood, they're able to socialize in terms of development, and this socialization in terms of development is through the knowledge that is imparted to them by the teachers who teach them, by the caregivers who also take care of them while they're in early childhood. There's also the physical development. When children go to ECD, the play materials that are there help them physically. When it comes to, jumping the rope, when it comes to throwing the ball, when it comes to all the play materials that are there, there's supposed to be play materials that are supposed to help children even make their muscles strong, even make the children physically strong. And it is also in this particular time, during the early years, that children learn a language. Honorable Speaker, as a linguist, I will say clearly that every human being has an innate device of learning a language. Whether you are deaf, whether you are hearing, whether you are whatever language there is, it's possible for a human being to learn. And the years to learn a language, the best years to learn a language are usually in the early years. Honorable Speaker, if a child is born here in Kenya and that child is taken maybe to China, even before 3 months, with time the child will begin speaking a language, a Chinese language, simply because of the environment there. Because children have the innate ability of learning a language. So, Honorable Speaker, we must make it right in early childhood so that we endow children with the right language. We endow children with the cognitive development. We endow children with the physical development, Honorable Speaker. We cannot afford to actually waste our children at an early age, Honorable Speaker. So I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that it is important that we develop children intellectually, and in developing children intellectually, it has a cost. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that as a government, we must be ready to bear that cost, because Kenya is among the countries that signed the UN Convention on Children globally. And in 1990, Kenya signed and ratified the UN Convention on the rights of children. And among the rights is education. Among the rights is the putting the interests of children. And we cannot put the interests of children first when they're in class 4, when they're in class 5. It has to start from somewhere. It must be well grounded, Honorable Speaker. If you're putting up a house, Honorable Speaker, and your foundation is not right, you don't expect that when you go to the lintels, then the house will be firm. You don't expect that when you go to first floor, the house will be firm. It has to start from the foundation, Honorable Speaker. And the foundation of children begins at early childhood, Honorable Speaker. We cannot afford to play around with the lives of our children, with the future of our children, Honorable Speaker. There is need, as Senator Dr. Milgo says clearly, to allocate money aside to ensure that we have it right in early childhood, Honorable Speaker. I remember in this committee where she chairs, we were able to meet 47 counties concerning early childhood. But, Honorable Speaker, on the floor on this House, I will clearly say that there are some counties that had no clear idea about issues of disability. Then counties that had not allocated any monies for disability. There are counties that have not even started a program. There are counties that are still grappling on how to do such things. We cannot be a nation that is saying that is coming out to bring 100% transition on education of children, Honorable Speaker, if we are not doing it for our children with disabilities. We must start from the word go. Honorable Speaker, we had an opportunity to go to Kitui during Mashinani, one of our Mashinanis, Senate Mashinani, and when we went there, Honorable Speaker, Dr. Zani is not here. She would have actually said what we saw. Oh, Senator Ongeri is here, Professor Ongeri. We visited some classrooms that were pathetic. There are children with disabilities that had no even materials. They were just left, to the doom. Nothing was happening. And Honorable Speaker, even in counties when you visit, and we have visited many counties, we have seen early childhood has not been given priority. Even during this CBC period, you'll find that, and I attested to myself, in a county where I come from, I went to a school and I found that children with disabilities were reading from a store, Honorable Speaker. There was no classroom at all. And in some schools, there are no abolition blocks, Honorable Speaker. There's no water provision, there are no tanks and all that. Even strategies of harvesting water is not there, Honorable Speaker. We cannot afford to ignore early childhood, Honorable Speaker. We must look for ways in which counties can commit themselves and ensure that they're doing something about early childhood, Honorable Speaker. Because when we don't make a commitment, then counties just, ignore the whole thing. There is need for 10%, as Senator Dr. Milgo states, to be put aside for the purpose of ensuring that we are developing ECD. And that is the prayer of Senator Dr. Milgo. And this prayer, Honorable Speaker, we should not just look at it like this. We should go and make county visits to ensure that something is happening, Honorable Speaker. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, some counties came also before us in the Education Committee, and we asked them also about feeding program, because you see, Honorable Speaker, a school brings equalization among children. There's some children where they come from home. Some of them do not even take a cup of tea. Their parents cannot afford. But in school, that is when there is equal opportunity in everything. And that is why even children wear uniforms, to show that everyone is equal. So there is need for the feeding program to be there, so that in the morning, children are given porridge, and it should be across the board, Honorable Speaker. The children are given porridge, children are given even food, so that we also see to it that we are helping children from disadvantaged families also afford a meal, Honorable Speaker. There is need to ensure also counties are keen about assessment centers, Honorable Speaker. Now, when I'm talking about assessment centers, and I brought this even to my committee, that every county needs to have an assessment center. Assessment centers will ensure that they assess children at a very early age, so that if a child has any disability, the disability is detected at an early stage. And when it is detected, then the child should be placed in the right center. Because when the child is placed in the right education environment, then the child will not lose out in any way. Honorable Speaker, there are some parents who get children with disabilities, and they move from pillar to post, frustrated, not knowing their child, but they are aware that there's something that is not right with their children. Honorable Speaker, we can save these parents by having functional assessment centers where they can be taken through what their children are going through, where they can be advised. And the assessment centers will work with the parents all the way, Honorable Speaker. I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that is important that we actually ensure that the prayer of Senator Dr. Milgo is actually put into place. And the issue of policy is very important for early childhood, Honorable Speaker, because if there are policies in place, put in place, that there must be money allocated for ECD, the county governments will do exactly that. And when they do that, the money should be specified, that this money is going for feeding program, this money is going for PWDs, this money is going for play materials, and so on and so forth. And even in specifying the amount of money that go to specific programs, they should be clear that the monies cater for the 4 clear goals of cognitive development, physical development.
Your time is almost up, so try to conclude.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Speaker. So in brief, what Senator Dr. Milgo is suggesting to the floor of this House, that money is allocated aside for ECD and policies are put in place. These policies should ensure that money is set aside categorically to cater for cognitive development, physical development, social development, because we cannot afford to have a poor foundation and grounding for our children in ECD. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. I beg to second.
I now propose the question that aware that the Constitution of Kenya, Article 53, affirms that children have basic rights, including the right to education, nutrition, shelter, health care, and parental care, provisions that are aligned with those cited in both the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, to which Kenya is a signatory, concerned that the current status of daycare facilities in the country are not child-friendly or habitable, and there is need to bridge this gap to capture the play group class in the new 26333 curriculum that is replacing the 32-year-old 844 system. Acknowledging that most working parents lack quality daycare facilities, as the playground is a safe place for them to take their children while they are at work. Now, therefore, the Senate urges that the Council of Governors, in conjunction with the Ministry of Education, ensure that A, counties allocate at least 10% of their budget to early childhood development education, ECDE, towards these vulnerable groups, and B, policy is developed to incorporate the needs of children who are less than 3 years of age. Senator Nyamunga Rose Ogeno.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I want to take this opportunity to support this motion by Senator Dr. Milgo, a motion on the allocation by county governments of at least 10% of their budget on early childhood education towards vulnerable groups in the counties, and development of a policy to incorporate the needs of children who are less than 3 years. Madam Speaker, I really want to congratulate my sister, Dr. Milgo, for bringing this motion, and this is a motion that should be developed further than this, so that it is actually made into law. Madam Speaker, in this House, or I think Kenya as a whole, we do a lot of bills and a lot of motions, and there's a lot of legislation that goes on. So, but the sad thing is that these things are never put into place. Like now, we can belabor so much on this very critical motion to make sure that there's enough allocation for the ECD education. But that what will be lacking is actually to to implement. The implementation is the biggest problem that we face as a nation. But I think Kenya has enough and very good legislation. Now, going back to the motion, you know, early childhood, that is where the child gets in first contact outside, apart from home. And it is important that the county governments do the best to make sure that a lot of schools lack infrastructure. And when we talk of infrastructure, we are talking about classrooms. Most county schools in the villages, if you go, you will be so shocked, seeing the type of classrooms that you call classrooms. They are not classrooms. And ECD is never given any importance. Yet that is the beginning of education for all the children. If you compare the rural children and in the town children, and yet, or the urban setting, and yet at the end of it all, the same urban and rural students, they will be doing the same exams. But if you look at the infrastructure, in Moso, if you take, for example, where I come from, my county, and in my village, in my sub-county, which is always, we always have perennial rain. When the floods come, it comes. So there's no attention that is given to the nursery school children. It's a very, very pathetic state, and even employing teachers. Teachers for ECD, they are never given any emphasis. But if at all they are employed, which I know some county governments have done their best to put up substructures. Apart from structures, they have also tried to employ teachers to take care of our ECDs. Yet the pay for these teachers is very, very, it's very inadequate. So apart from the infrastructure, the teachers also need to be taken care of and be at least given, given some salary and even benefits. Cannot be just a flat rate of a teacher being paid 10,000 shillings per month. And there is no other benefit. The medical care is not there, NHIF is not there, NSSF are all lacking. So, Madam Speaker, this is a very critical bill. Apart from the infrastructure and the teachers, we also need to make the children feel that they are children. Children who are children surely should be playing. You cannot put children into a classroom where there is no sign that this classroom belongs to children. If you look at the problem of JIGA and areas where there have been JIGA campaigns, you should go there and see the type of classroom where we subject our children to. It's very unfortunate. So people tend to take care of primary school when children go to class 1, but they really neglect the ECD. So 10% may be adequate, maybe not adequate, but it could be a good beginning if governors could see the seriousness of having proper infrastructure for our children. And secondly, if we talk about the daycare, most of the parents, even in the rural areas, all of them go looking for food, because even in the rural areas, the people who take care of families are women. They are the ones who concern themselves with the feeding of the children, the general taking care of families. It is actually left for the mothers. These same mothers are also at the child bearing stage. So it means that at some stage, they need somebody also to help them. But they may not be able to pay for the salaries for caretakers. Caretakers are very expensive, not only in Nairobi, but even in the rural areas. So a daycare, to me, could also be very basic that the county government should be looking into. Because when you leave your child with the type of house helps that we see, you will go to work or go do your business, but half of your mind will be where your child is. And we've had a lot of things that happen to children. We've had so many children who have been abducted or just stolen, and that's the end of that child. The parents cannot trace them. It is because of lack of facilities like daycare facilities. Some of it could even be made private. So long as it is done within the school, with the agreement of the county governments, they can set it such that there is the daycare and there's also the nursery school. The nursery school can easily be run by the county governments, but the daycare can also be privatized at a rate that can be affordable to most of the parents who are living in the rural areas. So, Madam Speaker, this is a very, very timely motion that should be developed from just a motion to the next level, maybe a bill. And as I said it earlier, we don't lack bills but implementation. We can do the best bill in this house, but to implement it, that is a very big challenge that we have with the people who are responsible of implementing the policies that are put in place, the bills, all these things. But there is a big need for the county governments to set substantial amount of money to take care of our nursery schools. At the nursery school, that is when you form yourself. That is when you learn the language. That is when you understand what the second language is all about. If you don't get it right, even if you reach the university level, such a person will never get the language right because they never got it right, they never had the right teacher, they never had the right opportunity. So you can be learned, yet some gaps are, you can see some gaps. We see that even where we are, everywhere we are. You can see this person, yes, had a very good formation at the right level, but some people missed it, and once you miss it throughout your life. So the nursery school is very critical, and giving it the right attention is very critical also for our counties. The fact that the nursery school or ECDs have been devolved, that gives the county governments a very big opportunity to make sure that the foundation of our children in terms of formation is, in terms of formation and the foundation is got right. So I support this motion, and how I want to urge my sister, Dr. Milgo, to make sure that it moves from being a motion to the bill, and we will make sure that in our respective counties, whatever is due to our children or our young mothers who must also attend to other duties are taken care of. And our children, our mothers have a peace of mind anytime they are away from home. You can go do your work, pick your child from a daycare, go to, and then from work you pick the child again. That is a provision that can be made. And it would be very nice if Kenya could have that. Together with that, we should be also organizing how to feed our children. Because in the villages, children don't have food. They don't have breakfast. They don't have uji in the morning. They don't have food. So if there could be a daycare or a proper nursery school where they go and they also feed, even if they had only one meal, that would do for them. Because sometimes the mothers go for business and they come back with nothing. So the child ate nothing in the morning, and we are just not doing politics here. We are just not talking. These are real things that we see every day. We see every day. I personally run a daycare at home for the benefit of the children, and I run it in the interest of the community. But you realize that those children, whatever breakfast they took and lunch, that is all they had for the day.
When you pass some library somewhere, you want to stop and get in to see, is there some latest works in this area that has come up? There's that constant search for knowledge, and I believe this will be an integral part of this Kenya National Library Service that we'll be doing to ensure that that body of knowledge is made available to Kenyans at all ages. Having libraries is, however, one thing, and I believe that we now need to also have the legal regime that supports that architecture, and that is what basically this bill is hoping to do. Honorable Speaker, I'm excited when you look at the different facilities that the Kenya National Library Service has put across the country. And I believe in about every county there's a library. Like when you go to, I know I passed through there's one huge one for Nairobi in Buruburu. And during the school holidays, if you see the queue for especially the school-going children to join, and on Saturdays, to go to the library, you get encouraged that at least they are going searching for knowledge instead of just sitting at home watching television and becoming, being moved into some harmful tendencies that can only be harmful to the mind. There's I've seen library in Muranga, I've seen others in Nyeri, I've seen others, and I also want to commend members of this House who have also put some money through their CDF before the function was taken over to the counties to actually build these libraries and help in the equipment so that people can have a place where they can seek knowledge. And because we need to encourage that reading culture, like I said, to divert our energy for our young ones from television, social media, that could be harmful to the mind. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I wish to assure honourable members that the proposals in this bill comply fully with the provisions of the Constitution and standing orders, and the bill will immensely facilitate realization of provision of Article 11 of our Constitution as regards the preservation and maintenance of library resources. Honourable Speaker, this obviously is a bill that will, like I did mention, it involves counties. So I am hopeful that by the time we finish with it, members of Senate will also see the need to enact this bill fast enough so that we can provide those facilities across the entire country. And I'll be appealing to the Senate to give it the seriousness it deserves. It's also a money bill, because obviously we are talking of resourcing. And I'm glad that the Budget Committee has prioritized it and said, yes, it's worth investing in our children's future in terms of facilities. So, Honourable Speaker, I really don't want to get into a lot of debate. It's a very self-explanatory bill. Like I said, there's already some framework. There are libraries, people are reading, and hence, what we really want is to have this bill passed so that we can have the proper grounding for Kenya National Library Service and update the institutional structure that was created in 1967, which is basically almost 5 decades ago. And so much has changed since then. I also want to ask members to read through it and profile any amendment they would need to bring. Honourable Speaker, with those remarks, I beg to move and to ask the Honourable Chair of Sports. I believe he is around. Yeah? Yes, the Honourable Chair for Sports, or Vice Chair for the Committee on Sports, the Honourable Professor Almain, who is a distinguished scholar in his own way and loves libraries to second.
Honourable Correio Lalamin.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I beg to support the Kenya National Library Service Bill 2020. Honourable Speaker, as a leader of majority has clearly indicated, this bill seeks to repeal the Kenya National Library Service Board Act, Cap 225, Honourable Speaker, which has been around for the last 54 years. So it's actually a very, very old bill. This bill is long overdue, Honourable Speaker, and also it takes into consideration that it needs to be aligned to our Constitution 2010. Honourable Speaker, the bill provides for the establishment of the Kenya National Library Service to repeal or to replace the Kenya National Library Service Board. This bill takes into consideration, Honourable Speaker, the changes that have been occurred in the library sector, devolution, and other constitutional dictates. Honourable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 1273 and Article 198 of the Constitution, the committee placed an advertisement in the newspaper on 30th April 2020. The committee received memoranda from two entities, being the State Department for Culture and Heritage and the Kenya Library and Information Professional Association. Mr. Speaker, all their proposals were deliberated on and considered by the committee. This is contained in the committee report, which was tabled in this House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the committee did have a number of observations during their public participation and engagements. Mr. Speaker, as the majority leader has indicated, the committee will be making quite a number of proposed amendments to the bill. And it is our wish that when it comes, this again will take into consideration. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased that this bill is before this House for the second reading, as it is long overdue. I wish, therefore, Mr. Speaker, to truly thank the members of the committee for the job well done. Mr. Speaker, I also want to urge the honorable members of this House to truly participate and support this bill. Honorable Speaker, thank you, and I beg to second.
I propose a question, which is that the National Library Service Bill, National Assembly Bill number 5 of 2020, we now read a second time. Honourable members, as I had indicated earlier, following the request by the member for Mosob, I would interrupt the proceedings to allow the chairman of the Committee on Implementation to give notice of motion. Honorable Olekenta.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That taking into consideration the findings of the Select Committee on Implementation on its report on examination of the implementation status of the resolution of the House of 6 June 2019 regarding the conditional approval of Ms. Mwende Mwinzi for appointment as Ambassador of Kenya to Seoul, South Korea, laid on the table of the House on November 27, 2019, which takes cognizance of the determination of the High Court of Kenya of 14th November 2019, Nairobi Constitutional Petition number 367 of 2019, particularly paragraphs 104 and 105, that while Ms. Mwende Mwinzi cannot be coerced to renounce her citizenship of the United States of America, USA, a person holding dual citizenship ought not be an ambassador unless a person renounces the citizenship of the foreign state, as dual citizenship may jeopardize the national interests of the Republic of Kenya against the interests of the foreign state. This House rejects the appointment of Ms. Mwende Mwinzi as an ambassador. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. But that's a notice of motion. If it's a notice of motion, yes.
Mr. Speaker, I am very happy. That's why I missed the earlier session, and I am not privy to what the House discussed. But, Mr. Speaker, from where you sit, because a resolution of this House has not been complied with by the executive. Speaker, will I be in order that as we wait to debate that report of the implementation committee, maybe order the Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations to summon the CS for Foreign Affairs and ask on the status. Is it true what we are seeing in the media that Mrs. Mwende Mwinzi, not Mwinzi, Mwinzi is an ambassador, or those are just stories? Can the minister maybe appear, Mr. Speaker, through your direction?
No, that may not happen at this stage, but the House is at liberty on Tuesday when debating to even add further recommendations to the report of the Committee on Implementation. We'll be looking at what the committee has recommended so that the other issues, there are some other issues to raised by the member for Mosob, which will obviously require the Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations to deal with the matter. Yeah. Member for Makueni, go back to the motion.
And thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very, very important matter. Mr. Speaker, it's clear that this bill is fulfilling the dream of the 2010 Constitution. And previously, Mr. Speaker, there were library services, but at times there will be questions as to why they are not distributed all over the country, and especially now that we have a new constitution, this bill was very, very important so that we can have a fair distribution of this important resource in all the country. Mr. Speaker, it's good to note that due to modern developments of communication, a lot of libraries are now online, and there is also virtual libraries, Mr. Speaker, and a lot of material can be accessed online. But at the same time, that does not mean publishers will no longer publish books, or as soon as they publish books, they put them online. Hard copies of books will forever be there. Is going to be a permanent thing. And one of the things said by the leader of majority while moving this very, very important bill, Mr. Speaker, is that libraries, and especially if they are put very well across the country, will enhance and will keep the youth busy in different parts of the country, and especially if this is fairly and evenly distributed. And I believe this will be the duty of the board, which will be appointed under this very, very important law. Mr. Speaker, if libraries are fairly distributed, and although a lot of material has gone online, it will still take time, Mr. Speaker, for everybody in the country to be able to communicate or to access books online, and they can be able to read them online, because it's also got an expense, and that may not be met by the very, very common Kenyan. And therefore, for the benefit of common Kenyan and for the benefit of a well-read nation, Mr. Speaker, if these libraries are all over the country, then it means even children who cannot afford school books, or where school books are inefficient, it means school children can access books in the libraries, the public libraries in different parts. As you heard, Mr. Speaker, quite a number of members have either fundraised and started a library, or through CDF, libraries have been established in different places. And for those who love reading, and there are quite a number, there are many children in the rural areas that wish to access a library, probably do their homework there, get guided. And at times, there are people who destroy materials in libraries, or unable to get a very rare book, end up pulling one or two sides. The proposed section 36, Mr. Speaker, has given penalties, very heavy fines for somebody who willfully destroys library material or obstructs library workers. And when this is properly done, Mr. Speaker, it will also be a source of environment, of employment of very many Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, we have a whole department in Moi University which teaches information science, which largely deals with publication and information dispensing through libraries, and they are actually graduate librarians, and librarians, Mr. Speaker, are all over the world. In fact, it's one of the biggest, one of the treasured stations in many, many parts of the world, and sometimes even go with the historical places where you store historical information. And for those who seek for knowledge, and especially to masters or PhD level or professors, these libraries will be very useful. Now that also universities are getting distributed across the country. Universities invest heavily on libraries. Schools invest heavily on libraries, and it's a very, very expensive affair. And for that reason, Mr. Speaker, it is important to have a law and a board which regulates on how this matter is going to be handled. They have to be premised in a ministry, and therefore there will be a budget
which will come to this House, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that we budget for this and make sure that we distribute, the funding is distributed evenly across the country, so that a lot of schools which are coming up, day schools, which we are building with the CDF, when they are studying ordinarily, library is not a priority. But if you have a library in a nearby market or near some of these schools, students could be accessing these books. It's also a good thing for retired people who can still read, at an old age. And our good senator, the late Yusuf Haji, used to read very well without specs, even at an age of 86. So we have very many Kenyans who could keep themselves busy after retirement, or when they are not very busy at old age, and by reading, they could even, add materials or research. Research is one of the very, very important instrument of development in a country, and most universities now are bent to research. So even individual Kenyans can conduct research on a matter of agriculture or a matter of industrialization. They will have sufficient knowledge on how to handle small businesses, SMEs, through library without necessarily going to a school for training. And therefore, it's very useful when we, as a country, we promote a reading culture. It keeps a lot of people away from mischief, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, this is very, very important step the country has taken towards making sure that there is a library every part of the country, and that there is a law which directs and guides how we are going to establish the Kenya National Library Service, which already exists, has been existing on an old law. This law is going to be repealed, and now will have complied with the new constitution, and among others, many other laws which are incidental into this, and we'll be able to synchronize. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, third reading, we are going to come up with amendments which will make this legislation even much better, and clear out, some of the issues which are not clear in this particular law, and make sure that it's a big benefit to Kenya. And this is one of the biggest gains of the 2010 Constitution, of which now there's an effort to amend it. But it's a very big step that, Mr. Speaker, we are able to give Kenyans one of the things which will really change the lives of many people. I remember when we were in school, sometimes you come to the library in town. Sometimes you may not find some books even at the university library, University of Nairobi, and you'll end up finding them at the library services, the libraries in the city. And you will see the traffic in these libraries. You see the order, the silence, the service there, the librarians who work there. Even us here in Parliament, Mr. Speaker, we have a library, which once in a while we access when researching materials. And we are specific here in the material found in our library, like some of the contributions in the colonial parliament, the independence parliament, the great speeches by some of the great legislators like Shukuku. So a library will always be useful. But one of the things which I think is not well covered here, and we should look at it, is the virtual library and the expense involved in the virtual library. And by installing that, Mr. Speaker, then a lot of young people who have now read information technology will highly be employed by these library services, and they'll be kept busy. We have a lot of people now who are very good in but as ICT, and even in this house, we have ICT gurus, ICT experts. And I believe a lot of young people who are on this particular field will now get an opportunity to work, and Mr. Speaker, will be able to employ many more Kenyans. So I beg to support, and I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Professor Odur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the outset, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say as a member of the committee that this indeed is a bill that is timely and one that is going to make a big contribution. Mr. Speaker, as we look at the Kenyan populace, starting with the older generation to the younger generation, we realize that not only do we have the challenge of reading that we talk about as a reading culture, but Mr. Speaker, we realize that we as a country continue to indicate that we would like to reclaim some of the lost values, and in particular to see ways by which we can have intergenerational conversation and mentorship. One of the key significant achievements, Mr. Speaker, of the bill is that we not only will equip, acquire and maintain resources that will be available all over the country from the library services, but indeed through reading, Mr. Speaker, we will have a very wide range of information for mentorship. It is said, Mr. Speaker, that someone who reads is never alone. And indeed, as a number of times, when we seek to see how we can engage our children, how we can mentor them, how we can shape them, we find that for a variety of reasons, even parents do not necessarily communicate as effectively with their children. And in the same way, Mr. Speaker, that the children, particularly those who are at an age where they need the greatest kind of direction in the teenage and young adulthood, do not have that same opportunity. Therefore, as we look at this, Mr. Speaker, we see that not only are we ensuring that we update and indeed ensure that we are moving from what we had as far back as 1957, Mr. Speaker, but that we now have a way where we are ensuring that the library service will be one that is technologically savvy, because it will indeed be in keeping and in tandem with the world as it is today. We would be in a position to ensure that we have a wide variety of resources. There will be those resources that can be available to those who might not necessarily have the kind of digital coverage that we have in urban centers, because we will have, in addition to information that is available on software, information that we have on the hard copy. And so, Mr. Speaker, as we look at this bill, it is indeed an important advancement and recognition and a key tool that in this House we, as we pass the bill, are giving to the country. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, would like to support this bill, and indeed to say that the committee, in its public participation, not only with the ministry responsible, but with experts and other key stakeholders, confirmed that this is timely, this is appropriate, and is therefore a key achievement and a necessary addition indeed to the kind of services that we have. With this, Honourable Speaker, I support. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
For Nabaholo.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I rise to support this bill. Honourable Speaker, as it is written in the same bill, Honourable Speaker, it's a bill that's amending a very old existing bill of 1967. And Honourable Speaker, when you look at what used to happen in 1967, you cannot really put 1 + 1 to it. Instead, Honourable Speaker, issues and the way of life has really improved and changed. Therefore, Honourable Speaker, I look at the way the committee has done and say thanks to the committee that you've done a good job, and you are now going to use this bill, Honourable Speaker, to take the country to another step higher. Honourable Speaker, a few of the issues that are mentioned in this bill that make me appreciate the bill include, Honourable Speaker, that it's taking cognizant not only library referring to the reading materials, Honorable Speaker, but it's also encompassing so many issues of reference, as it is in article in clause 3, Honorable Speaker. It proposes that there will be a preservation of national documentary heritage and to distinguish the function of the Kenya National Library Service from other libraries, Honorable Speaker. As a distinction, Honorable Speaker, and in the preserve of national documentary heritage, it takes a wide scope of undertaking of the heritage of Kenya. And Honorable Speaker, many a times we just look at library, meaning a place of storage of documents or books. In this case, Honorable Speaker, the bill goes beyond the books. Instead, it looks at our heritage in totality, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker is also going to develop, manage, and maintain the Kenya National Library through this act. In as much as, Honorable Speaker, we have like the newly refurbished library in Upper Hill, Nairobi, is also going to look at the bigger view of the libraries, Honorable Speaker. As you can notice, it is not just the issue of bookwork, we also have the issues of electronic books. But through this bill, Honorable Speaker, we are going to look at the electronic part of it, the hard copy part of it, and Honorable Speaker, by equipping the library, is going to change the way of our youth. Honorable Speaker, our youth need to have the culture of reading. Many times, Honorable Speaker, you pass by a stage, you pass by the road, and find our youth just standing or doing an idle-minded kind of activity, Honorable Speaker. But with this kind of equipping the libraries through this bill that it will now manage, have a board of directors, have everyone put into place, Honorable Speaker, is going to be a good thing. Honorable Speaker, also this bill shall enable to acquire, preserve, and maintain a collection of library resources, including books produced within and outside Kenya and other materials. Honorable Speaker, this bill shall also link our library to external libraries, Honorable Speaker. It will enable us now to have a linkage on how we can now be able to link up to external users, and also external publishers will be reached through. Honorable Speaker, the bill also, one other items that enable me to be attracted to the bill is that it will establish and maintain as a library, the National Agency for Administering International Standard Numbers for books, serials, music, and others. As I said earlier, it's not just the issue of the reading material, but it will be extended, Honorable Speaker. Many a times you might have an art, be it music, be it the art of marshalling or whatever, that you might not have a way of preserving it. But through this bill, Honorable Speaker, this bill is now recognizing fully the storage of the art in terms of music, in terms of books, and in terms of ideas, Honorable Speaker. In clause 6, Honorable Speaker, this bill has established the whole board. How is it going to be administered? It's going to be a structured organization, Honorable Speaker, with a board of directors, the board of the National Library, which will be the board of the National Library, having a chair, and various PSs, Honorable Speaker. However, I look at the way it has recommended the various other PSs or principal secretaries from the state organizations as taking the majority of the board. I would have loved, Honorable Speaker, during the committee of the whole House, allowed to look at why should we have all these PSs from the state departments who could otherwise have been maybe represented by two of them. We all lump them into one. Instead of that, we can bring on board other actors, Honorable Speaker, who might add value in terms of supporting the organization to move forward, rather than having our own civil servants being full in the board and they cannot really bring additional ideas. Honorable Speaker, as I thank the board, which is established under Clause 6, we also have the way it's going to be run, who are the persons to be put in. It has really been recognized, and I thank the committee for really giving the qualifications of the board in Clause 7, so that we don't just have to pick anybody. Instead, there is a criteria of who is to be in the board, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, down to Clause 26, the bill also provides the operations of the Kenya National Library Service, which shall be in accordance with the standards that shall be set out in the third schedule, Honorable Speaker. Annexed to it, there's a third schedule which will now display, or rather which displays on how the bill is being done. According to me, Honorable Speaker, with the way the bill has been itemized, the way the bill has been scheduled, the way the bill has been put, it really allows the operationalization and improves the nature in which our library services shall be run in this country. Honorable Speaker, in final, I am really pulled to clause 29, which also allows us, or gives us, what is it that's going to be kept into this library? As in the bill provides that the Kenya National Library Services shall maintain records of the following, Honorable Speaker: all documents, whether in soft copy or in hard copy or any other format, so that, Honorable Speaker, you don't go to the National Library and find what is not supposed to be there. Kenya National Library Service, Honorable Speaker, cannot now store sugar the way there is some other godown, Honorable Speaker, somewhere which was meant to store timber, and it was found storing sugar somewhere when we were doing our field service, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, this definition, Honorable Speaker, it really makes me to be sure that when you go to Kenya National Library, you will either get the hard copy or the soft copy. Honorable Speaker, it is also defining that all persons and institutions registered as members of the library. Honorable Speaker, this calls for registration. It is good to be known. Where do you reference? Who are you? Are you a scholar, or what kind of a person are you? Should you be doing a particular course, Honorable Speaker, you can at least have a pool of professionals whom you can associate with. If you want an architecture, Honorable Speaker, you can easily say, this is a pool of architectures, and so this is going to be available, and you can easily access. It will make our students, Honorable Speaker, at least to know, when I'm going to this library, I'm going to meet this in this company for ease of their discussion. Honorable Speaker, finally, it's also telling us such other particulars the board considers necessary or desirable to be recorded. Honorable Speaker, we are not just tying the board that it will do what has been listed, but also in their own wisdom, Honorable Speaker, the bill is giving them latitude to be able to work on their own and improve how they want the library to take place, to run. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, with that flexibility, it definitely supports that this is a national body, and it's a going concern, and so whatever decisions to be made shall be good for the people and for this country. Honorable Speaker, the way the bill has been lined up, I know finally it's being considered not being a money bill, because it's going to incur costs, but also being responsive that the bill shall also affect the counties. Therefore, with that, Honorable Speaker, as it goes to the Senate, we hope that the Senate will also approve it, so that our country gets a new law, a law of the 21st century, which can now live today and see our generations move forward days to come. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support.
Let's have the Honorable Kevin Wanyonyi, member for Kwanza.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this very, very important bill. Madam Speaker, I think on a very onset, I want to say that this has come at a very early time. We have a lot of problems around. First and foremost, as a member of Parliament, I must admit that when you go to a school, secondary schools, whatever, or college, they'll ask you money for something else, but not for the building of the library. And therefore, I want to say that we should actually try to change this culture. First and foremost, we have to equip libraries to be able to have the old books, which, as you know, Madam Speaker, some of these old books are very, very good. And I can tell you that this particular bill will be able to help us acquire some of the very old books, and I think there's going to be money spent on the same, to be able to equip our youth. Because, as you know, you look at our youth, what they're spending money on, and that's these games and what have you. Nothing that is good for them, nothing is good to be able to develop their intellectual capabilities. And therefore, I want to say that by reviving on this particular bill, I've not gone over the whole act, but it'd be able to, first and foremost, there'll be an interest in acquiring the books that are valuable for the future of our children. And two, eradication of illiteracy, because you know, you talk to one of these boys, I'm saying, because I'm a parent like you know, you ask him and talk about about knowledge. I mean, it's just more or less bullshit. I mean, there's nothing. There's nothing that you can be able to take home. Oh, that boy is intelligent or that girl is intelligent because of the kind of activities they are involved in. And therefore, this, I think, will be able to, as moved by the leader of the House of Business today, it will increase reading interest. It will actually increase the reading, which I think is not there. And therefore, in those days, I know when I was doing my Senate 3, 4, 5, we had libraries around the area, the vicinity. You could go there and borrow a book, whichever type of the book you want, and then be able to sit down and do some homework. There are no TVs. But now, these days, a child from school comes and just glues himself or herself on the TV and cannot be able to know, and some of them cannot even read a newspaper, can't read and say, hey, what is on the headline? And he just looks at the pictures. So that the libraries think will be able to encourage and eradicate the illiteracy and encourage the reading and the culture of the youth to change from where it is today. And therefore, I think it's important that we'll be able to do that. The other thing that I want to do is that maybe, and I hope that that's going to be in the Act, we should be able to have the mobile libraries. I used to see vehicles moving from one center to the other, and it's like a Friday or Saturday afternoon or morning. They'll park in a place, put some tents, and you can go there and borrow the book or whatever, books, and do the reading. So we want to encourage this, particularly once you pass this, the third reading, be able to have some money put aside to have mobile libraries that can move around in the constituencies or whatever, or a county, to be able to see that people get interested. Oh, what is happening here? And in fact, that becomes a curiosity, and people will be able to cultivate that kind of interest and can do the reading. And therefore, I think it's also, and I think I'm going to be the first person to do it. I want to spend some little money to buy a mobile library and get some books that are relevant. You got to consult teachers and other people that are of value to be able to give us the books so that the vehicle can go around as it used to be those days. And I can tell you this, I can tell the House, I saw mobile libraries those days going around. And you go there and they sit there and you borrow, read a book, and you know, that kind of interest to arouse the youth, other than sitting and playing some funny games in the TVs or on the mobiles, what have you. And it does not really help our children. And therefore, maybe the CDF should also come in and at one stage be able to buy some mobile libraries to be able to assist us. Let's invest that so that it can be able to change the culture of reading. Because today, I'm sure, your child, my child, they're not interested in reading. And that be able to change that kind of culture for prosperity. Lastly and not least, I want also to say, I think the borrowing of the books, which I think was properly presented by the leader, let's have this country get as many books as, maybe from Europe or as long as are English books, to be able to have those books around for children, to be able to have some interest in the past books. Because past books, like, I know they're very, very interesting. I read some of them and I'm afraid some of them are torn by the children, but are good. I repair them, and you come to my house, apart from getting whatever soda, you'll be able to see some of those old books, and they are very, very valuable. And therefore, I think I want to support this bill, and hope and look forward to us doing something else to change the culture of our people for the future prosperity of this country. I support the bill.
The Honorable Aden Duale.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a bill that has my signature. Unfortunately, when I was signing, I was the leader of majority. But now I'm the member for Garissa Township, so I am a bit conflicted. The member for Honorable KJ is saying I'm a backbench. I love being at the backbench, Honorable KJ. This bill, Madam Speaker, ideally is supposed to make sure that Article 11 of the Constitution is actualized. That is the whole purpose of this bill. And repeal the old Kenya Library Service Board Act, I think of, is it 255, Cap 225, I'm sorry. And actualize Article 11 of the Constitution, which provides, and this is a catching statement, it's the most important statement in Article 11, that the state shall promote all forms of national and cultural expressions, either through literature, through arts, through traditional celebrations, through science, through communication, through information, through the mass media, through publication, through libraries, and above all, through cultural heritage. So this bill is basically doing that. Number two, and more fundamentally, Madam Speaker, with the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution, there has been a need to align this sector called library services to the Constitution, particularly on the role of national and county government. And if you read the fourth schedule of the Constitution, in fact, libraries are functions of county governments. And having said that, an amendment must be introduced by the committee. And I don't know whether the chair is here or the vice chair. You know, during my days, chairs and vice chairs used to be here. If they are not here, then they should be whipped. You should whip them. They should bring an amendment to Section 6 of this bill. And in the formation of that board, the Kenya National Library Service Board of Directors, the county government must be represented. If they're not be represented, then this piece of legislation will be unconstitutional. Library is a function of the county governments. Madam Speaker, the other two issues I want to raise is that days are gone. You know, days are gone. Libraries these days really serve maybe in the rural areas, in the poor constituencies. But during our days, people used to go to the libraries. You know, the Nairobi University Gandhi Library, you know. Even if you're not a student of the University of Nairobi, you could go and read. So libraries are key in universities, in schools, in communities. But these days with technology, you can read a book. You can get information from your smartphone. But what is more important today, Madam Speaker, is that there should be a culture of reading. And why do I say so? You know, when I left the office of the Leader of Majority, I had free time. So apart from reading as obligated by my religion, the Holy Quran, once in a while, on a daily basis, after prayers, I had free time if I'm not going to my constituency. So I've started reading books. And it is very interesting. The moment you adopt the culture of reading, you will find reading books one after the other. And Madam Speaker, let me even say, since I left, there are two of the many books I've read, there are two books that are very interesting. One is by Hillary Clinton, the presidential candidate in, I think, 2016. And you know, when she lost, she wrote a book, What Happened? The book is called What Happened? And I want to urge other presidential candidates, when they lose the elections, they write a book, What Happened? Were they rigged? So it's good to read Hillary Clinton's book on what happened after she lost. And she'll explain to you, and you'll get convinced why she lost. The other book, which I've just finished last evening, is a book by the former National Security Advisor to our friend, former President Trump, John Bolton. The book is called The Room Where It Happened. And I'm on that route. Madam Speaker, I am also writing my memo. I won't call it The Room Where It Happened, but I'm going to say more about the rooms where it happened that brought Jubilee where it is today. So please, next year, inshallah, around June, July, please, if you'll be around, attend the launch of my book. So it will be similar. It will be called The Room Where It Will Happen. It might not be that title. So what am I saying? So the culture of reading is important. People don't read. Who is shouting and think this is not the August House? Madam Speaker, you need to protect me. Because the other day, you know, there was a guy with a gun here. And now that I'm not the leader of majority, I'm very vulnerable. So, Madam Speaker, so the most important thing in this bill, we must bring the element of the county government. Two, and finally, Madam Speaker, there are religious libraries. Because Kenya is a religious country. There are Islamic libraries, there are Christian libraries. So as we make laws for the establishment of a modern piece of legislation for the establishment of libraries, in libraries we must find sections that deal with Islamic literature, Islamic history, Islamic library. We must find a section that deals with Christian and the history of Christianity and other religions. So that as we read the worldly books, we inculcate a culture of religiosity in our children. We must bring our children in a culture where they believe in the existence of the Almighty God. They must believe that they must be good Christians and good Muslims. So as much as we put a section for business, a section for management, a section for schools, primary school, a section for university, we must create sections that deal with religious artifacts and religious information and books. And Madam Speaker, finally, when I was in the 10th Parliament, our chamber used to be where the Senate is. And Honorable Kioni will agree with me. And next to it was a library. So you could walk out, do a small research, and come and contribute. But now we have the tablets here, where we can just by a touch of a button get information. You can get the Constitution. You can get all principal acts. But Mr. Speaker, historically, the Library of Parliament should not be in Continental. The Library of Parliament should be next to the chamber. Yeah, it should be next to the chamber, so that you can get out and even read. For example, like the newspapers, you can't get them here. So if you want to refer to a newspaper or get an information, the library, I think Parliament must be, the National Assembly must be configured in such a way that the library must not be very far, either near room 7. But if you tell me that the library is in Continental House, Madam Speaker, and I have seen it in the House of Commons, in all other parliaments, libraries are not very far from the chamber. So, Madam Speaker, I think this is a small bill, it's a very important bill, actualizing Article 11 of the Constitution, and I want to urge members, please read. And finally, you must read. There's a book called, Madam Speaker, if you allow me 1 minute, there's a book called, very important book called, and it will help you, is called it's written by an Italian writer in 1892, and it's called, Madam Speaker, I can't remember, so let me remember if you give another.
So, have you remembered?
Yes.
Okay, 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, let me say it another day because Honorable Kioni is teasing me, and I don't want to spoil my day.
Honorable Duale, and you know, we've had a lot of prescriptions from you of books, and I'll be looking forward to read about the many rooms. The many rooms.
Madam Speaker, the book is called The Laws of Human Stupidity. It's called The Laws of Human Stupidity. And Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, the only thing among the many things it talks about is that in the environment where you live, in the office, for example, there are too many stupid people, including your secretary, your driver, even in your family, can be your wife, your children, who will bring you down if you're not careful.
We'll take note of your prescriptions, Honorable Duale. Let's have the member for Funyula, Honorable Oundo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also join my colleagues in supporting the introduction of this bill in the House. Honorable Speaker, before I came to the August House, I was a lecturer for many years at the Day University of Nairobi, of course, nowhere else. And Honorable Speaker, one of the things that amazed me is that you would find students going all the way to fourth year, but sadly to speak, they can hardly read, they can hardly comprehend and communicate in English. Honorable Speaker, in my current role as a Member of Parliament, I have gone to very many primary schools, I have gone to very many secondary schools in my constituency, but sadly to speak, many of the students are unable to communicate clearly and coherently. This shows clearly, Honorable Speaker, that the reading culture in this country has completely been extinguished or vanished from our midst. And this is a serious and a dangerous trend. Honorable Speaker, I interact with very many members in this House. I interact with very many people, very members from the Secretary of the Clerk's Office. But some of the reports that we produce, Honorable Speaker, clearly shows lack of depth, lack of reading ability. Honorable Speaker, we do believe and trust that this bill should have sincerely addressed itself on the diminishing reading culture. Honorable Speaker, one of the things that we used to do in the early days was to spare time to read. When I was in primary school and secondary school, I think I read all the novels that were available during that time. At the moment, it is a mess that 99% of the time of our young people, both boys and girls, are spent on social media, spent on Twitter, spent on WhatsApp, spent on Facebook, and spent on other things. Many of them are unable to even spell a word without having to use the dictionary or spell check on the computer or the spell check on the phone. Essentially, we do believe time is nigh for us to change the trend. Others will have leaders in this country who are unable to read and write, so to speak. Honorable Speaker, I have had a chance to look at the National Library Service Bill of 2020, and I want to make a few comments. Number one, as my colleagues also have said, is actualization of Article 11, subsection 2, on the issue of culture of of our Constitution of Kenya. Therefore, it ought to be a repository of all cultural artifacts our culture, and everything that is about Kenya. We must also try to draw a line between the WI services and the National Archives system that we have, so that we are very clear what we relate to. Honorable Speaker, looking at the bill, there are quite a number of issues that we must address. First of all, we have so many libraries in this country, both private, both public, and semi-public. Honorable Speaker, one of the areas where radicalization happens, one of the places where you can get wrong material, either detrimental to our children, detrimental to the state security, and related facts, could be in the libraries. I would therefore move an amendment at the committee stage, committee of the whole house stage, to make it as one of the functions of the library services to license all libraries in this country, so that we have a clear list of database of all the libraries and the kind of materials that are stored there. This will help remove the element of plagiarism that seems to be gaining trend in this country. That will also ensure that we keep track on the kind of material that we are looking at. Honorable Speaker, the fourth schedule, part 2, line 4, devolves library services to the counties. And I join my colleagues to say that, clause 6, which states the membership of the service needs to be changed to ensure that the county governments are represented in one way or another. Anything else short of that will make the bill unconstitutional and therefore not meeting the requirements of the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, when we go to clause 24 and 25, gives a list, the process of acquiring materials, the process of meeting materials. It's not very clear. How does the service acquire that material? Is it by force? Is it by coercion? Or is it by voluntary submission? And if we submit our material, how sure are we they are safe, they will be referenced accordingly, and those kind of things? So therefore, that particular clause, Honorable Speaker, must be redone to ensure that that process is very clear and everybody knows what's the process to be followed. Honorable Speaker, I like clause 35. Many times you feel sad. You go to the library, you pick a book, you find several pages have been plucked out for purposes that some students are lazy or some readers are lazy, they want to go and copy word to word. The penalties that has been imposed here is good, and probably you could consider enhancement of those penalties. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, it is important that the kind of material available for reading, the kind of material that is available for reading to various levels, age levels, should be clearly demarcated, should be clearly noted. You find many places, you go to the library and you find children probably access some novels that are beyond their age. So one of the issues that we need to be very clear, and that's why it is important to license libraries. We must demarcate this for adults, this for young people. And as I conclude, Honorable Speaker, it's just a rallying call. Leaders lead by example. Let us be the leaders to lead by example. When you go home, as Ambassadorial has said, spare time to read. Let you be seen be reading. The children and the people you work with will also take up the good habit of reading to ensure that we get it right. As we stand here in the House, I also request members, let us be factual. Speak or state what you have researched, what you have read. It's very embarrassing at times, a honorable member to come and start here and talk out of depth, talk out of context. When you go outside there, people start wondering, do you belong to the same parliament? Do you guys research and to know exactly what is the position? With those few remarks, I support, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Kipyegon Ngeno.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for also this opportunity to also contribute towards this particular bill based on the library systems in our country. Madam Speaker, remember our constitution. And Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, can you protect me from senior members here?
Order. Honorable.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Constitution, the framers of the Constitution, Madam Speaker, devolved library services to the counties. And at some point, we normally look at it as a very unfortunate situation because the functions which are normally devolved are those functions which are needed majorly by the people around the counties. But Madam Speaker, remember the functions of the libraries are almost working hand in hand with the functions of the national government, especially the education sector, because libraries were meant to be falling actually under the Ministry of Education, which would have actually helped us to ensure that the libraries work properly. Despite so, Madam Speaker, I would also wish to join my colleagues in stating that we must align it to the Constitution so that it can as well have the same functioning shared by both county and national government. Madam Speaker, I support this particular bill because it seeks to distinguish the management of the existing libraries. It is giving actually the existing libraries and the libraries which maybe needs to be formed the management team that will be looking into what are the needs of those particular libraries. Madam Speaker, remember we have national libraries both in the counties and in the cities, but the problems that we have in the counties, Madam Speaker, is that most of the libraries that we have are not properly equipped, they are not properly funded, they are not properly managed. I hope this particular library board will ensure that the libraries that are in existence are properly managed and funded so that we can have our learners visit those particular places and find the materials they want. Madam Speaker, I also support on the fact that in most of the counties, like the sub-counties, in most of the counties we have maybe 1 or 2 libraries. We need to create a situation where at least in every sub-county we must have 1 or 2 libraries. Madam Speaker, reason being, we have so many learners, both in our primary and secondary and even at the universities. And most of the students who normally come for vacations would want to have places to go and study, do research, do discussions and all that. Madam Speaker, it's hard because most of these learners cannot borrow books from their universities. They can borrow only 1 or 2 because of based on the limits of those particular cards they are normally given. But when they come for long holidays, especially during even the long corona holidays, most of the learners could not find anywhere to get books. Madam Speaker, if we have libraries in our sub-counties, in every sub-county, so they can have even 2, these learners will not be idling the villages. They will be reading, they will be borrowing books, they will be returning them. And of course, it will be easier for even our libraries to track the borrowers because they will not run away, because the libraries will be close to the villages. Madam Speaker, I also wish to say that I support this particular board because I believe it's going to expand and modernize the existing libraries and the ones which will be formed. Madam Speaker, remember, our learners nowadays have moved, we all have moved from paper to digital. Madam Speaker, learners would also wish to visit these libraries and find books and books and books which are online, and they can as well be reading them online in the libraries using computers and laptops. So, Madam Speaker, this board must ensure that they modernize the existing libraries and even those ones which needs to be built so that they can meet the needs of the learners who are in the villages and who are in those particular areas. Madam Speaker, I also support because I think it will help. The board will also help to look into the preservation of the history or historical heritages and those materials which deal with our cultures. Madam Speaker, remember, there are a few places that if you want to know about the historical cultures and even historical happenings, you only need to go to archives, mostly in the cities. Madam Speaker, we need to devolve even those archives to the libraries so that if you want to access information about your great forefathers, I believe almost all of us in this country have a background. So at least if you want to access who did this or who founded this or who did that, Madam Speaker, we can only find them in archives which are hard even to come by. If we have them in the local areas, in our sub-counties, in the libraries, Madam Speaker, I think even those new ones who want to write their biographies and many background informations about our local areas, they can have access to the materials and write books which can also be found in these particular libraries. Madam Speaker, lastly, I also wish to support this because I believe the board will come and to promote research, research in most of the, especially even on those, Madam Speaker, you know, that those who still want to study, those who still want to do courses of higher learning. Madam Speaker, there are those who still want to research on maybe for their PhDs and other degrees. Madam Speaker, if we allow them to access materials in these libraries, or we equip these libraries and modernize them and have all that is needed, it will help those of us who could be even may not have the opportunity to be in the cities to access those particular books. We can access them in the libraries. Madam Speaker, I wish to say I support, and I wish to say that this House also must support by not only passing the bill, but by also providing the funds necessary for the equipping and modernizing of these particular libraries. And then we also promote it by being also learners ourselves. You know, people look upon us as leaders. They believe that anybody who comes to this House, Madam Speaker, is somebody who is literate, and not just literate, but somebody who is informed of what is happening in the world. Madam Speaker, it is important that even us, we will be attending those particular libraries and studying and by interacting with people so they can know actually we are also informed and also get ourselves informed. There are those of us who sometimes we rise up in this House and talk over a matter which we do not even understand how it goes. So, Madam Speaker, like my colleagues have said, we also need to have our library within this particular premise so that we can also be doing research on many other issues. With that, Madam Speaker, I support and I thank you.
Honorable Muliungi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to talk on this bill. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the Kenya National Library Services Bill, which intends to amend the original bill of 1967, which has indeed become archaic and outdated. Indeed, Madam Speaker, these amendments are belated, and they should have actually come yesterday, because 1967 is a long time ago, shortly after we gained independence. Madam Speaker, I support this bill because it attempts to introduce technology, move with the times, from the times of 1967 when we were on print media to electronic. We then went to computer, and now we are on mobile phones online. Madam Speaker, the spirit of adopting new technology in this bill is indeed very good, and I commend the authors of this bill for the work they have done to bring these amendments on board. The bill attempts to transit us from the ancient times of walking physically to the library to the modern day technology of the option of virtual learning, which is indeed a good idea, because then you can read, you can access books from the comfort of where you are. Madam Speaker, I agree with the Honorable Dr. Undo and the Honorable Nduale that the culture of reading by our young generation and even ourselves has diminished. And therefore, this bill should actually attempt to encourage the culture of reading, make it very easy to read. So, Madam Speaker, the changes, I believe, will improve, the changes introduced by this bill will improve learning by our young generation. And I propose that the relevant departments in government should ensure that they promote, as much as possible, fund libraries to the sub-county levels, and even going forward, even to village levels, and also improve libraries in our schools and even make them virtual, so that even when you have retired to your dormitories, you can actually access a book from the comfort of your bed and revise. So, Madam Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Honorable Waweru Kiari.
Madam Speaker, I really appreciate this opportunity to contribute to the passing of this Act of Parliament that seeks to establish the Kenya National Library Service, and I actually do support. Madam Speaker, as you can see from the interest in the House, you are able to know what this country thinks about libraries. I know there are people who would ask why we would be concerned with libraries in such a time like this. Madam Speaker, there is an intelligent man who once said that if you were to ask why there is a need for libraries at a time like this when the information is available everywhere, it is like asking if there is still a need for a roadmap when the roads have become as many as they have become. Madam Speaker, I do personally believe that there is a place for libraries in this time and age. Madam Speaker, I'm standing to support because I understand that by establishing a new library service, Madam Speaker, we are actually bringing the library services up to date. Madam Speaker, the old Act on libraries is probably 54 years old. There's a lot of progress that has happened since then, and I would believe that there's a lot of changes that have occurred, not only in the library sector, but also occasioned by devolution and other many constitutional changes, Madam Speaker. It is for this reason that I do believe that we are in order to replace the existing board with a service, Madam Speaker, so that we are able to bring this sector to modern times, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this new bill seeks to introduce persons who shall be serving in this library service, Madam Speaker. I do believe that when we get to the third reading, we shall make some necessary changes beyond what the committee has recommended, up to and including streamlining the number of people who shall be appointed to this service so that they're in line with the mwongozo, which guides how we do the governance issues in quasi-government institutions and sagas, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it saddens me to see the state of libraries around this country. And the plight of our libraries did not just become as bad as it is in our time. It is well known to me, Madam Speaker, that at the dying minutes of colonialization, as people realized that we were just about to get independence, some beautiful libraries, up to and including the Macmillan Library, were vandalized by individuals who believed that we should not benefit from the knowledge that has been deposited in libraries like Macmillan. And I know some people who were fleeing because at that time there was what you would call white flight, as they realized that colonialization is actually on its sunset days, who went into these libraries and picked some of the finest books from the libraries, vandalized them, or even stole them so that we, future generations, would not benefit from these, Madam Speaker. So even as this service is being set up, the people who will come to serve in this new service, Madam Speaker, should also oversee the new thuggery that is happening in our libraries, which includes the plucking of pages out of very important books, so that when you go to read a book, you will find that there's important material that is missing in some of these libraries, Madam Speaker. Another issue that I think should be taken care of is innovation, Madam Speaker, because with innovation and the advancement in technology, we will have to rethink the library. Madam Speaker, it is Sidney Sheldon, who is a writer, who reminds us that the library stores the energy that fuels the imagination. They open up windows to the world and inspire us to explore and achieve and contribute to improving our quality of life, Madam Speaker. To be able to improve the quality of life in this day and age, the library of today will have to be a modern library, Madam Speaker. We have attempted in Dagoretti South constituency to put up a public library within the Dagoretti South Empowerment Center. And Madam Speaker, as we are doing this, I would imagine that in the third reading of this bill, we shall be able to amend this place where this bill is talking about other libraries to read public libraries, so that a library like the one that we have in the Dagoretti South constituency can be encompassed as one of those that shall be served by this service, Madam Speaker. In innovating, Madam Speaker, such libraries, you realize that we will need to create spaces that are spaces of interaction and knowledge exchange, Madam Speaker. We will need a space that is quiet enough for contemplation. Because when you're in a library, Madam Speaker, you want to absorb the knowledge, but you also want to contemplate on what you're reading. Madam Speaker, these spaces should also be spaces for innovation. And I do believe, Madam Speaker, that we should have a space that is neutral and a trusted space for public use, for older people, for younger people, either gender, so that when you're there, you feel comfortable enough to do the kind of contemplation, study, and pursuit of knowledge that you need to do when you go into such a space. Madam Speaker, in our case, we have attempted to also bring in technology into these public spaces, Madam Speaker, equipping the library at Dagoretti South Empowerment Center with computers, because we realize that the library of today, Madam Speaker, is not just about books. We need to think about a library as a repository of our culture, Madam Speaker. I remember when I was a member of a troupe called the Ridiculous Trio, I was ably informed that the people who are agents of the Library of Congress actually showed up in this country looking for every single episode of the ridiculous comedy show, so that they can go and store it in the Library of Congress, Madam Speaker, as an audio-visual reference of a time space or a time capsule in the Kenyan history, Madam Speaker. So in the same breath, I do believe that this library service that we are forming will also think of the library not only as a place where we store books, but also as a repository of our culture. Madam Speaker, I say this as a person who came into politics from a platform of the youth movement. And in the youth movement, Madam Speaker, I was able to learn that generation after generation in this country keeps making the same exact mistakes that were made by previous generations, Madam Speaker. There is talk in this country today about a hustler nation, a hustler movement. And more predominantly, these are young people. But I realize, because we are not able to store our culture, able to store our stories, able to store our folktales, the same mistakes that were made by the Mau Mau generation are the same mistakes that were made, Madam Speaker, by the young people who are fighting for the second liberation in this country. The same mistakes that were made by the people fighting for the second liberation are the same mistakes that we were committing when we came into the youth movement and were trying to seek for answers for this country. We want to pray that the latter day hustler nation does not make the same mistakes that we made, that were made by the people fighting for the second liberation, that were made by the hustler, by the Mau Mau nation back in the day, just because we were not able to store the stories of our country in a meaningful way, Madam Speaker. So I rise to support this new introduction of the Kenya National Library Service, Madam Speaker, noting very well that as we make this library, we will need to make libraries that are meaningful for today. Madam Speaker, I want to conclude by quoting an individual by the name David Lanks. David Lanks is a librarian, Madam Speaker, and David Lanks was once quoted as saying that bad libraries build collections. Good libraries will build services. However, great libraries build communities. Let us build libraries that will build amazing communities for the future of this country. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
You know, Honorable Kiari, I still wonder whether the comedian in you still exists when you mentioned ridiculous. It was a good show then. Let's have the Honorable Luyai Hamisi. Is in the house.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this bill, whose objective is to give effect to the Constitution in order to promote all forms of national and culture expression through literature, the arts, traditions, celebration, science, communication, information, mass media, publication, libraries, and the cultural heritage. Madam Speaker, just like my colleagues have amply argued on this bill, if I give an example of during this time of global pandemic, most of us who didn't have so much to do, we indulge in reading. And one of the, among the many books I came across is Why Nations Fail. And if you look at the expressions in some of these written materials, specifically from this book that I came across, you find exactly the reason why Kenya is where it is. And an example that was given of the South American countries, the countries that are so close to each other, separated by only a fence, so close in terms of cultural, environment, and even language, so similar, but yet so far apart in terms of development. It is exactly the problem that the modern leaders are grappling with, that why are nations that have been close to each other, historically, they have been at par in terms of development, economic, GDP, but yet the countries are so wide apart in modern days. If we had a culture of reading in this country, I probably think our leaders could have a different perspective on why they're elected into leadership. We have had, if you look at the leaders in other nations, even in America and Europe, you'll find the leaders leave behind biographies and memos and very important pieces of literature that guides the new generation. But I don't know, is it because we've had a long culture of not, a wrong culture of reading. We've not cultivated the culture of reading from generation to generation until our leaders have also learned to live the same culture to our new generation. that even the four leaders that we've heard from the Kenyatta, Kibaki, Moi, they have never left a single piece of literature. I mean, leading a nation for 24 years and there's nothing to write about. Is it that you are doing nothing for those 24 years? So we must cultivate this culture of reading so that our future generation will not suffer the cost that we have suffered as a generation. And this bill is going to ensure that this country is not left behind. And probably, you never know, because most people talked about countries like Singapore, North, South Korea, that were at par with Kenya. And if you look at the reading culture among the nations on earth,
Honorable,
you'll find some of...
Is there something out of order?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it's not out of order, but it's a request for information. My colleague did allude that you cannot rule for 24 years.
Request for information?
Yes, I would want to inform him, Honorable Speaker.
Do you want to be informed, Honorable Amisi?
I don't wish to be informed by a person who has never ruled this country. Probably if those...
Honorable Whip, I'm sorry, if he doesn't want your information, then we can't force
it. Then, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, it can be a point of order, because after now, I wanted to make it soft for him, but we cannot allow him to misdirect the House, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable
that
Amisi,
indeed,
you can be seated, Honorable Amisi. Let's hear what Honorable...
By giving us false information, Honorable Speaker, that indeed...
You're out of order, Honorable Amisi. Just have a seat. Honorable Wangwe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. We cannot allow him to give us wrong information on the floor, Honorable Speaker, that indeed a leader ruled for 24 years, which represents Honorable Moi, without writing a book, Honorable Speaker. Yet we are very much aware of the number of books that Moi wrote. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Amisi, kindly be clear, clarify what you're talking about and be factual.
Yeah, I think he must have been looking for something to say today, because what I was saying, Madam Speaker, was just an example of so many leaders in this country who have ruled without even mentioning a name, because there are members of parliament who have served even 30 years. So I didn't mean the president or the deputy president. I just said a leader who has served for 24 years. So I don't know why he's quick to jump into defense of a person I have not mentioned, Madam Speaker.
Malaria ni ugonjwa hatari sana unaoua watu wengi hapa Kenya. Japo kuko na korona, hatari ya malaria bado iko. Mtoto huyu alikuwa na joto jingi, kutetemeka, kuumwa na viungo na uchovu. Alikimbizwa hospitali ya umma ambako sheria za COVID-19 huzingatiwa na ni salama kwa shughuli ya upimaji. Vipimo vilionyesha kuwa ana malaria na papo hapo daktari